don't be shy, ask questions. I'm going to go through first just a little few slides, and then we'll be talking directly in the product because sometimes talking directly in the product kind of shows, well, okay, this is the actual power and functionality of the solution. So let's see, screen one here. All right, so what enables MDR offering. So let me get. It starts out with the first challenge that a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, even large businesses, face. The first challenge of collection of logs and security event information. You have everything from your endpoints, your servers, your firewall appliances, your cloud services, your remote access, your identity management platforms. All of those systems and solutions are generating alerts all day, every day. And to find those alerts, you have to go into those platforms, but that's not sustainable. That's not a growth sustaining motion to go into each one of those individual sources of information to find information when you need it. That speaks nothing of the challenge of whenever you need to bring all of that information together in one location so that you can make sense of it, to correlate it, to aggregate it together, to figure out what is good information and what is not good information, what is not useful for you. And that's the SIM component of N-able MDR. We're going to be providing for you a cloud a cloud-based SIM solution where your responsibility in the environment is simply to get a syslog collector into an environment or install the collector agent on the appropriate endpoints or make an API connection to a cloud service. Once you've done that, all of that information, all of those security events information, all that log information is coming into N-able MDR, being parsed and made searchable for you. So if you have somebody on your team that you want, they can come in and do KQL queries, but chances are you may not have the time or the staff or the skill sets to come in and search through that data 24/7 to find the useful information that you need to go action on. That is what the next step of what N-able MDR does for you. It enriches the data. It's going to leverage threat intelligence. It's going to leverage dark web monitoring. It's going to use user and entity behavioral analytics to try and make sense of this entire volume of information that's being pulled in all the time for you. After it's done this, it helps it figure out, oh, hey, I've seen that there's abnormal behavior with a user. They are logging in from a location that they do not normally log in from. And that is information that helps the SOC team. All of this information is going to go by a set of human eyes. There will be a human-led threat hunting team that is going to be investigating all of the alerts and abnormal activity that is raised by the platform. So it is not just automated alerting that's being done here, although that is a very big important part of it. There is machine learning, there are data scientists writing new rules, there's AI in here, but there's also live human eyes looking at this data and performing threat hunting activities. And then you get into the response of it. So whether it is because of the AI, the machine learning, the pre-written rules, or a decision that a live threat hunter is making, the platform can respond to threats for you. It is able to reach out and take some SOAR actions, so security orchestration and automated response. It can disable accounts, reset credentials, have the ability to disable access or enforce encryption, being able to, for a Outlook web application or O365 Azure block, take and block access to those resources, isolate, power off, or even reboot devices for you. These are all actions that can be automated in the platform to be taken. But then there's also the remediation that the live human elements of the service will perform for you. They will, if need to, they will add in IP addresses into the blacklist that you can subscribe for. So instead of your technicians or engineers on the end user side being notified of unusual activity was detected, it was associated with this external IP address, you should go block that IP address in your perimeter defenses. Instead of that being a manual task with N-able MDR, it is actually an automated task, which really shaves down on the amount of time and effort it takes for teams to stand these types of solutions up and man them. And then out of this will come the reporting. There's compliance reporting, real-time threat intelligence that's able to be pulled from the system. This is going to be a big differentiator for a lot of these types of services, because a lot of these services in the MSP channel are built on the way they are built. Whenever you need reporting, you ask for the reporting, and then they will prepare the report and send it back to you after a certain amount of time. Some services can do this in hours. Some services it might take days, because they have to pull this information together from multiple sources, and it's just their process for how they do it. With N-able MDR, it's instant. You're able to immediately generate any of the reports that you need. You're also able to customize and generate your own reports based on your own KQL queries. So if you have the staff and the talent available, you can search through the raw data just the same way as the SOC team that stands behind this is able to do it. So a few things that I've heard, and these are just because of oh, hey, get you out of the screen there, Simon. See you over there. For N-able MDR objections. So these are just like the objections I've heard over the past 2 weeks while I've been out at conferences in the US. These are usually the things that people come up with, like, I'm not interested, or we don't need this. It's usually one of these reasons. We have our own SOC. We plan on building our SOC next year. These are two that are common that I will hear that you should probably, okay, what do you mean you have a SOC? And what do you plan on that SOC you're going to build next year? Because sometimes people will say, we have our own SOC, and it's really just one person who checks the alerts from 9 to 5, and then the rest of the time they're on call. So it always is worth figuring out what somebody means whenever they say they have their own SOC already. And also whenever they say we plan to build a SOC next year, have you actually thought through this? Have you put planning in place? Have you done the calculations for this? And this is a calculator I have, really simple, straightforward. All you have to do is populate in the information based on what somebody tells you. You make them self-qualify this information of, yes, that's how much I pay an engineer. Yes, that is how many of them I would need. And it eventually starts, and it's getting you these ridiculously large numbers of what payroll would cost. Even at the simplest and the cheapest way you can stand up a SOC, you have to have one person on shift 24/7, 365. So that's 80,070 hours of payroll that a company has to find. If they don't already have the people to do this, well, they've got to find 80,070 hours worth of money to pay these people. And that's not going to be enough, because that's only 3 guys on rotating shifts. They're going to get burned out. They're not going to have time off. Lots of labor violations. So you're going to have to hire more than just 3. You're going to have to hire 6. So you have proper rotation. That number will double. That number will double. And this is just to get them to confirm that their grand scheme, their big plans to build out their own SOC over the next year, might not be something that they can actually afford to do. If you can get somebody to kind of accept that fact and to swallow that bitter pill, then it's easier to have rest of the conversations because you're able to show them for the whatever the small amount is that you are having to charge for your MEDR subscription. You're able to show them, instead of it being a sunken cost, you're able to show them immediately revenue. You're immediately able to turn around, sell this, and start generating very healthy margins on this. Here in the US, this is about in US dollars. I won't be able to convert it in my head for you, but in US dollars, it's about $240 per user per month to build out an entire managed services program with something like N-able MDR as the backbone. So there is very much opportunity in here that they will not be able to realize trying to do it themselves. So this calculator, very, very useful. I'll make sure you have availability on it. You'll have to, of course, edit it for your currency, but all the calculations should still be straightforward and the same. So the other common objections. We use E3, E5 licenses from Microsoft, or P1, P2 licenses. And they're using those licenses for the improved security that those licenses offer. But they may not be using all of the functionality that comes with that. It is worth challenging them that if they say, yes, we do use these licenses for advanced security, well, that's rather expensive for, probably half or a quarter of the price per user. You can get more security and more breadth of coverage out of N-able MDR. So this, that licensing conversation of what they are currently doing with Microsoft, if they're using Microsoft, will help uncover, hopefully, the fact that, oh, I can cut my cost down and deliver more services and make even more.
Channel.
Then already on SIM, so my engineers can take a look when they need it. Make sure that if somebody says, I already have a SIM, I don't need the rest of this stuff, it's, well, then, okay, cool. Let me tell you that the SIM doesn't cost you anything extra for ingress or egress. That'll usually catch their attention because they're probably using a SIM solution that is going to cost them more for storage and cost them more for the amount of data that goes into it. With N-able MDR, it is a flat price. It's not an additional charge, no matter how much data gets ingested. It is charging you based on the amount of time, how long that data is being retained, not on the amount. So that can usually be a good way to start a conversation with them. They're like, hey, we can probably cut your cost of your SIM alone and get you all of this other extra stuff as well. Already have a third-party SOC. Try to get them to lay out, well, what does that SOC actually provide? What data are they looking at? That SOC may only be looking at endpoint information. It may not be looking at cloud information and domain information. It may not be monitoring for manipulations to user accounts. It may only be monitoring for the security events that the antivirus on the endpoint generates. So anybody that already has a third-party SOC, try to get them to tell you exactly what that SOC is doing with what data. Also, a lot of these services of third-party SOCs, they will find something and they will tell you about it. That is it. They will not take any actions on your behalf to try and contain, remediate, or mitigate an ongoing event. They will simply tell you, hey, we saw these things. Here's the alerts. You need to go address it. And back to the under-provisioned, understaffed MSPs and practices, that fact that you're now going to have to get that alert at 3 o'clock in the morning. Someone has to get the alert. I mean, somebody has to probably wake up out of bed, answer the phone call, and then 30 minutes later, they might be responding. So this takes and gets rid of that very, very narrow window of opportunity that you have to stop an active ongoing attack. If you have an active ongoing attack in an environment and the SOC is starting to pick up the signals that somebody is in there poking around and preparing to drop a ransomware payload, you need the SOC to be able to step in and stop that, not tell you that you need to stop it, toss you an email, send you a voice message, and now their hands are clean. It's now on you to go address it. So those are the common objections or the common things that have been in the past 2 weeks here in the States. Now the actual Adlumin product itself. I'm going to go through and highlight some of the functionality, some of the features, some of the very common things that people are, they honestly, they get excited about, or it is something that is not available commonly in other services. And first, there's always the warm fuzzy story of Adlumin, which is, who this is. You're not going to be able to hide that it is Adlumin once somebody is in here. But it is, we have a channel exclusive partnership with Adlumin. We are going to handle that relationship in the MSP channel. They're going to continue to focus on the enterprise, which is where this is from. And the fact that this was from the enterprise space usually makes people, give it a little bit more benefit of the doubt out the gate. This is it's been around for about 6-7 years now. So it does have history. If somebody wants to go, start pulling, information about the history of the company, they'll find nothing but good information whenever they start looking for them. Multi-tenancy is always a big thing. So being able to demonstrate quickly, easily, yes, this is a multi-tenant solution. You're going to be able to put your clients in here. They will have their own silos of information. And that also means that you can, in co-managed scenarios or situations where you're maybe rather hands off with the delivery of it, you can add a user in here at their tenant level. They're able to take advantage and use the platform. The dashboard metrics that we're looking at here. So there is the N-able MDR service of, well, what am I getting out of this that means I don't have to do any more work? I am offloading the work to the service and I don't have to do anything. I don't have to put staff on it. And then there are parts of N-able MDR where it's like, but here are things you can use to improve your security stance, to be more aware, to address things, to discover security discrepancies or misconfigurations in your environment. And the dashboard view for each individual client does a really good job of that with the network health score. This is fairly easy to read, but it is easy to read metrics on why are you scoring so low. It helps explain to a non-technical user really quickly and really easily, okay, these are why you are in a bad security stance. This will also show up in the executive summary report that I'll show later, because that executive summary report does a really, really good job of selling the service for you to the end user, to the end client that's going to consume it. But then there's also the other things up here like at-risk shares. This is going to be something that if you have a very technically inclined individual on the line and you're talking with them about it, these are some of the things that's probably going to make, get their attention. Oh, this can show me all of my file shares in the environment that are risky. A junior technician or a junior engineer, just in the interest of speed and efficiency, they will set up a share with admin credentials, full control, and then map that drive out to everybody and just give them access. That is quick and easy, but it's not very secure. That means now that if an attacker got into that environment and compromised one normal regular user, they now have access to all of the file shares in the environment. They now have access potentially to the Windows credential cache information that's going to allow them to further compromise the environment, because they now have a handle on some admin credentials. So this is one of those small things that you can't really sell an entire solution on, but it's a individual problem solver for a very important thing that will build some trust and some interest from a more technical user, that they can just look and it will tell them this. They don't have to go out in the environment and perform an audit. They don't have to figure out how to write a PowerShell script in order to get this type of information out of their environment. That is something that a very skilled individual can, yes, do, but it's not a skill that everybody in the MSP space is going to have. The other items in here for compliance insights, these are other important things that you have to monitor and be aware of and take actions against. Do you have stale accounts? Do you have accounts that are older than X number of days? Do you have stale passwords? Are there any users where the passwords are set to never expire? Group policy violations. I really like this one because this is one that really gets the attention of anybody that has been a systems engineer. They're like, oh, wow, this is telling me where I have group policy violations, where I have circular logic in my group policies, because those are things that, again, it takes a special individual with a certain set of skills to have the time and the inclination to actually go into an environment and figure this stuff out. This is just presenting it to you, and all you had to do was install the N-able MDR agent on a domain controller. And I'm going to drop down into network health as well. Since we had it here, there's also another subsection of it that kind of aids in this. Oh, this isn't just the service, it's the ability to help make me be more secure. This will also show us for items like IT operation failures, locked out accounts, privileged local accounts, which is important because, well, you're not supposed to have a ton of privileged accounts in an environment. You're only supposed to have a handful of carefully controlled ones. And this can help show you, okay, this is way too many privileged user accounts in my environment. I need to address it. There's also, as I mentioned, the IT operation failures. So if we go into this one, this will show me where, again, we have open shares, open shares over permissive items, and it just gives them that checklist of, oh, these are things that I need to go address in the environment. While I will not call this vulnerability management as a whole encompassing service, each one of these individual actions and these individual pieces of information are helping you remediate and mitigate vulnerabilities in your environment from misconfiguration. So, and that is an entire other conversation whenever you have someone ask you about, do you have a vulnerability tool or a vulnerability scanner or a vulnerability management platform? It's always, well, what kind of vulnerabilities are you talking about? Are you just concerned about vulnerable applications that are installed on endpoints? Enable EDR, S1, that's already available inside of it. Are you concerned about vulnerabilities associated with misconfiguration of systems? This can handle some of that for you, as well as the perimeter defenses. So being able to monitor from the outside your ports that are open, your certs that are being exposed, the applications or the services that are behind whatever your public-facing IP address is. This is a whole other entire license and product that is just in here inside of N-able MDR that you get for free. So this is another one of those little items that can help you chip away at the arguments about cost. Look at these other things you're getting that you now do not have to go and purchase as a separate tool, as a separate license. So now I'm going to kind of switch over, and there is a lot more in here about the helping you as the MSP better secure your environment and actually do some of the work. But I'm going to kind of switch over now to the SOC side of it. Chances are most of the people that are going to come in here and want to take a look at this, that's what they're really going to be interested in. And with the SOC service, whenever you're engaging that is the managed detection and response service. The way that's going to play out is you'll get into a POC, you'll get into a proof of value with them, you'll get into the trial. They will establish some rules of engagement. Who is supposed to be called for emergencies? What are we monitoring for? What's being ingested? Kind of get those all laid out. And once that's done, they're just ingesting and taking those actions on your behalf on anything that comes into the system. And whenever something is detected, whether it's detected by one of the automated systems or it's something that is flagged by a threat hunter, they'll show up here underneath an individual client, underneath the immediate actions that are required if they need a decision from you. If they don't need a decision from you, that's just going right over into the managed detection and response activities, where you can view the activities that this SOC team is going in. But here, just to kind of give out a storyline of, well, what is this going to look like in practice? We have an original event here where we have an ad lumen SOAR action here where, yep, it reached out and it told that account it's going to have to reset their password on the next time they logged in. And that's because, oh, hey, there was a dark web hit. That username was found in a database that was in a data breach that we found on the dark web. Then there was a follow-up action for Office 365 where it's like, oh, there was an anomalous login to 365 from a foreign IP address. This is something that typically you need those E3, E5, P1, P2 licenses from Microsoft to be able to do anything with. This is able to do that without those licenses. And then it kicked off a SOAR action, so an automated response to disable that account on the domain controller. So got the alert, that user logged in from somewhere they should not have been able to log in from. Let's disable that account. Let's kick them out of their sessions. And that just the other events we have in here, just some example ones. There was a VPN event, so a VPN login from a foreign IP address. Object manipulation, an account was disabled, so you can get those types of alerts. That is something that is crucial for an MSP to be able to know and alert on and be able to investigate whenever a user's credentials are not credentials, but a user's privileges are elevated. So a regular user all of a sudden is moved into an administrator's group. That's something that the MSP, anybody responsible for that environment, needs to know and verify if that's okay or not. Lateral movements. So this is where the AI behind the platform is able to kind of pick out from all of the log information that's coming through that potentially there's lateral movement occurring in the environment. Somebody is moving around, performing reconnaissance. Process execution. So again, another AI detection, process execution, ransomware detection. So that's another nice bit inside of the solution. Is that it's also trying to determine, independent of whatever your endpoint protection solution or EDR solution may be, is trying to use all of the logs and security event information that it's finding to try and pick out ransomware activity as well for you. And then IT operations failures. These are also items that are being alerted and brought back to you. This one is this system has rebooted without cleanly shutting down first. So that is something, it might not be really a security event, but it's something that you're not going to know until somebody investigates. And that is also right here in the platform. This is another differentiator. The ability to come in here and as the consumer of the service, say, yes, that is fine, that is true positive, that is false positive. I need to declare an incident on this. I need you to put human eyes on this to figure it out, what is happening. And that's something that you don't usually get with other SOC services. You have to put in a ticket. You have to submit a request. You have to call them and tell them that, hey, can you take a look at this event? And that is a 2-minute process, 3-minute process, 20-minute process, depends on the SOC service, versus this where it's in here, it's automatic. You can just instant declared, yes, I want to declare it, and it'll start the ball rolling. There's also on the managed detection and response activities here. So here's that darknet exposure. So we can see that the SOC has actually taken action. They've processed this. We can see the notes on it. So you'll be able to know what the state is, what's being done. And you can also add notes in here as well for communication or to record things. But you will also have the direct phone numbers for the SOC. This is another really important differentiator. Most SOC services, you interact with them behind a ticket portal of some sort. You don't get the opportunity to call them directly whenever things go sideways. So that's going to be a very important distinction here. On the integration, so what can the platform ingest? So there's the endpoints, the workstations, the servers, your firewall appliances, your IDS, IPS, network equipment. Really anything that can push out a syslog, it can be ingested in here. If it is a cloud service, you can check underneath integrations and you'll see all the cloud integrations that are available. And then will show you all of the integrations that are available. These are all primarily API-based integrations, though. But there are a lot of recognizable names here, a lot of major players in the space. So it won't be often that somebody asks about ingesting from something that's not in here. If it's popular, it's probably going to be in here. Detection. So there is all of the black box detection that's being done by the service. The rules that the data scientists write, the AI, the machine learning, the human engineers on the backside, they're constantly improving. They're constantly writing new rules and new correlations and new detections based on, the active cyber threats and active campaigns that are actually happening. But you do have the ability to come in here and create custom detections if you need. And this is straightforward. It would be a new skill for somebody to learn if they don't know KQL, but it's a fairly straightforward query if they've had experience. Usually I just say, have you ever written an SQL query? Have you ever written a query for a database? And if the answer is yes, then say, okay, that's good. That's encouraging. You can pick this up fairly easily. And these custom detections are where you can expand out. So if somebody says, I need to know whenever a new device is added to or a new device account is created in Intra, in Azure. That would be something that you would come in here and create a new custom query for. And you can treat it how you want it to be treated in the flow of alerts and notifications. Enhanced monitoring is the same principle, just gives you some important items. And I'm going to point this one out because it is a common ask for somebody that is more security minded or more on the technical side. They'll ask, how do I know whenever a new user is added to my environment? How do I know whenever a user is, changed to an administrator? There is an entire list in here of multiple different types of events that it can be alerting for. So an account is disabled, an account is enabled, a member is added to a group or to a privileged group. An account is classified as stale, 60 days, 90 days, whatever they want to have as their threshold. account violations on password expirations. A security-enabled event is security-enabled group is created. Just tons of little things that are a challenge to find an alert on if you do not have something like this. This is making it trivial for them. Darknet exposure, not too much to add on it, but I will point out, because this will be a common challenge for the MSP that is supporting small businesses. That small business may not have a dedicated email domain, or they may have business owners or board members that have vanity email addresses or private email addresses that they use for company business. You can use this to monitor for whatever those personal email addresses are. So if they show up in a data breach, you can still get alerting on that. This is another one of those differentiators. Most dark web monitoring services work off of the domain only. And the ones that do allow this type of per mailbox or per email monitoring are usually charging for that. So again, this is another free, license, a licensable product that they no longer have to go find a license for. Threat intel. Here we go. Another small important difference in between this and other SOC services. Right in here is the ability for the technicians, the engineers, to come in here and search with the same tools and the same data that the SOC has access to. So if I had a network connection that occurred out on a VPN appliance that I'm investigating, and I want to get a better idea of, well, what is this IP address associated with? I can search it right here in the dashboard, don't have to go to a different tool, and it will run that query for me and show me that, oh yeah, here are the virus total hits where this IP address has been associated with malware or malicious activity. Here's the Open Threat Exchange information about that IP address. So this is enough information to fairly quickly let somebody know that, yeah, that was a bad address. I'm glad we blocked it. Or using it as additional information to maybe try and discover, well, we did suffer an attack, and this is the IP address that was associated with it. Can we use this to figure out attribution? Which threat actor group is associated with this IP address? Because if they can find that out, then that lets them know, well, these are the other tactics and techniques that these threat actors use. Let me go look for those through the SIM searching, by searching through the logs that have been collected by N-able MDR. File hash, same function. It's just with file hashes instead of IP addresses. Newsfeed. This is instead of engineers, technicians, SOC analysts having to go out to multiple different places to find what's happening today in the world of cybersecurity, it's just feeding it all into them right here. It helps keep them appraised and up to date. AT-IP Shield, this is another one of those, oh, hey, there's another license you don't have to go purchase. This is a blacklist feed for your firewall appliances, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems. If chances are they're going to have firewall appliances or IDS, IPSs that can use one of these block lists. This block list is going to contain IP addresses that are based on global intelligence. Here are all of the list of bad malicious IP addresses that we know about because of either purchasing them from a private source or collecting them from government sources or their own intelligence. And that gives you a constantly updated blacklist that consists of the current known cyber activity. That could potentially be that is stopping them at the gates. You don't even let them get into the environment if you're able to implement this. And there's also a second blacklist that can be generated by the system that, instead of it being the global knowledge, it's local knowledge. It's knowledge about only that tenant's environment. So if there was that foreign VPN access attempt that gets triggered, that IP address can automatically get added to a blacklist for that client's environment. So they can subscribe to this one as well as their own personal one that's tailored for their environment. On the SOAR actions, there's the automated playbooks. Usually it is enough to just highlight that there is SOAR in the platform and that these are the actions that the SOAR actions can take. But if you are dealing with a technically inclined individual, you can also highlight to them that, oh, by the way, all of those SOAR actions, you can come in here and trigger them yourself. So I could, without the need to go into Azure, into AWS, to go to an individual endpoint, without having to go through the trouble of getting access to that device or that service through another portal somewhere else with another set of credentials, I can just take the action from right here. And that's time savings. That is a 5-minute process is now shrunk down to 30 seconds. It makes them much more efficient, much more streamlined, because if this was not here and they decided that, hey, I do need to go power off that system, they would have to go into their RMM platform, or they would have to log into their M365 or Azure tenant for that client, drill down, find the device, then take the action. So it seems simple, but it's over time significant time savings. All right, into reporting, because reporting is going to be very important for a lot of people. A lot of MSPs do not want to work with raw data and be told, well, here's all the raw data. Now make a report out of it and make it pretty so you can sell it to your clients. There are the executive level reports in here. They are very easy to read. You get to brand it with your own custom logo so they can customize it there. And you can generate these reports for a time period. And you can either do a full report or a summary. I'm going to go grab one of these completed reports. And there we go, board IT committee. So this will give you, again, brandable with their logo. And then the first thing it gives you is the executive summary. This will be a familiar funnel style report that shows them total number of events, how many of those events are erased to actual alerts, how many of those are actual incidents that get declared, what's the severity of them, compliance insights. And this gives you that proof of value. There's an immediate proof of value that can be scheduled to be sent on a recurring basis to a client that says, hey, these are the total number of events we processed for you this month. Look at the hundreds of thousands, the millions of events we've had to evaluate and dig through. Aren't you glad we don't charge you more for this? And then further down, there's tons of useful information in here. There's always worth having one of these reports saved and available to hand off to somebody as well, here's an example. There's also that network health comes back again. And this is really useful for an MSP that has a hard time talking to their clients about why security is important or justifying why they need to make changes to the client's environments. That's going to, of course, cost money, but they have trouble having that. Well, it's for security purposes, not just because I need to sell you something. This can be very helpful for them because it's plain language, what the metrics are, why you're getting such a bad score on it. So you're able to just put it in front of a client and say, these are your security deficiencies. We can address them. It'll be a project. Here's the cost. Or you're using it as hey, these are deficiencies in your environment. I know you're not wanting to address them. That's fine. Sign this risk acceptance letter or this risk register that details that I have told you about these security problems and you're deciding not to address them. Some MSPs are not at a point in their journey as a business where they can take that kind of stance with their clients. But I always encourage them to try to get there because it can, one, it helps them sell more and it reduces their risk exposure long term. Like makes them, it's going to help them elevate their clients that are willing to more secure stances, and it's going to reduce their risk exposure by getting rid of the clients eventually that don't want to play keep up with what needs to be done nowadays. And then there's also the administrative reports, so the auditing reports. These are going to be another hot item for your technically inclined individuals. These are just raw data reports, CSV exports of data, such as, I need to know for a certain time period, any time that a piece of media was plugged in or removed from a device. I need to know for a specific time period the VPN accesses that happened. Or the auditing reporting that's done here, last logon report. So when was the last time users logged on? When was the when and what user permissions have been modified within the time period? These are all reports that if you did not have this portal, if you did not have a SIM, and you had to go manually collect this information, this, just getting that user group permissions report, if somebody doesn't already know how to do that, that is a half a day to a day of their time spent trying to get that information out of their domain. So these reports here, again, these are what kind of reinforce the worth and the value of the solution outside of just the 24/7 SOC service. And if you do have those individuals that do want to be a little bit more hand-on, they want to be more involved with it, you can always let them know, well, you have full access to the platform. You can do the searches and the queries and take the actions yourself in concert with the SOC service if you want to. So you're getting access to the same data they have. There's also in the download sections, this may or may not excite somebody. It's always going to be a question of what their technical competencies are. Technical competency and interest is the honeypots VMs. This is another, you don't have to pay for a service. You don't have to get a license. You don't have to do a bunch of work. It's just download this VM, run it in your DMZ, run it in an environment down in production so that it can collect information about the environment. And hopefully its job will be to let you know whenever there is a threat actor in an environment that is forming lateral movement. They're poking around in the environment, touching things that a normal user shouldn't be doing. These honeypots can help capture that information and make it easier to discover whenever it's not somebody dropped an off-the-shelf ransomware in the environment. This is more for there's actually a skilled threat actor who's gained access to the environment and is trying to be very quiet and very sneaky about what they're doing. These honeypots improve your opportunity to be able to catch them. And again, that is another one of those small value adds that is, hey, that's money you don't have to spend somewhere else to acquire this. It's in the platform. It's part of the cost. Take advantage of it. All right, so I've covered a lot of the things where we've been having success here in the US with that have been really well received. We've got a few more minutes on the hour here. Is there any questions from anybody?
I think a lot of information to process. Thank you, Louis. It's really interesting.
It is. It's a lot, and don't hesitate to reach out. If something comes up and you need an answer on something, or you can't figure out how to answer a question particularly well, feel free to tag me.
Is there any other areas to cover in today's call, or is it a wrap?
I think that's a wrap, unless somebody else has something on the EDR, on the technical side. be more than happy to get into it, but this is usually what you want to be familiar with enough that you can give the yes, no, it can do this answer. Past this, you start getting into the kind of you get into the weeds and the technical stuff that you might need a technical resource to answer questions on.
There's a question in the chat around support
Okay.
for Linux agents.
Yep. Linux, Mac, and PC.
Awesome.
So there's not much that this platform can't ingest and bring in. If it's syslog, they can bring it in. If it's a modern OS, they can most likely bring it in.
Is it possible to run a trial? Is that available for partners?
So yep, there is a trial available. It's usually a 30-day proof of value POC. You get a full access to the platform. It's fully functional. And that helps out a lot with the, prove it kind of situations, because a lot of these services like this are built off of well, just pay us, get into the service, we'll onboard you, and then you get to see what it's like. This is, no, don't pay us anything, get yourself onboarded and decide if you like it, because the process of getting somebody into it is so streamlined. It takes, the collector agent for the endpoints, you can push that out through Insider and Central in a matter of minutes. You can install if somebody already has the hosting infrastructure in their environment, it takes 15 minutes, 25 minutes to get the VM for the syslog collector installed and get your syslogs pointed over to it. And after you've done that point, you're kind of done with it. You're just waiting for it to populate the information and for the SOC team and the SOAR actions to do what they do. So this is nowhere near as steep of a hill to climb as it is with somebody trying out Insight or N-central for the first time. Insight or N-central for the first time somebody's trying it out, that's days, that's weeks to even get them started and halfway configured. This is something that they really should be onboarded and testing within a matter of a day or 3. As long as they're willing to go ahead and do the work, they can get it done in a day.
Right. So what do you need on the endpoints in order for admin to be able to do the best they can do, basically? So I assume you need some sort of EDR.
So yeah, you're always going to need, so this is not going to be a replacement for an endpoint protection solution, whether that is EDR or some other solution. You're still going to want to have the best endpoint protection solution in place that you can afford and make sense for the environment, independently of what you may be doing with N-able MDR, because N-able MDR is not going to, it's not going to stop a ransomware file or a ransomware application or an executable on the endpoint in real time like an EDR solution can. An EDR solution is making that judgment on the endpoint as it is happening. So it's in milliseconds, seconds worth of judgment time. N-able MDR, it's still fast. You're getting the information out of the environment up into the service. It's going through the behavioral analytics and the user analytics and everything, and it can make those decisions, but that's a 1-minute round trip, a 2-minute round trip. And that's time wasted that something could have already been stopped by an endpoint agent. And there's a bunch of other scenarios and situations where but usually it's whatever you were going to use for an endpoint solution anyway for security, you're probably still going to want to be using that even if you use N-able MDR.
All right. I believe there were 2 different SKUs, or one the standard and the advanced SKU. Can we go over that quickly?
Yep. So there's the standard and advanced SKU. The only difference between the two is, does the environment need syslog collectors? If the environment needs a syslog collector because you're going to be monitoring a firewall appliance, you're going to be monitoring a IDS or IPS system, then it's automatically going to be the higher SKU. I don't know what the price is going to be for you there, but that's the more expensive SKU. If they're not going to ingest syslog, then it's the cheaper one. And then there's always the software only option, which is it's not that popular because you're losing. I mean, while it is very nice, if you have somebody's like, I only need a SIM, I don't need a SOC service, and they're digging their feet in on that, that's fine. Let them consume the software only license for it and get the SIM functionality, and they're probably going to be very happy with that. But for on the majority of the engagements we're seeing, almost everybody is going for the more expensive syslog license SKU, just because it lets you capture everything that you need to be capturing.
Yeah. All right.
Any other questions from the audience? Now it's your time. No, just kidding. You can always reach out to us at any time. We will help you with any questions.
Yeah, I believe there was a webinar tomorrow as well for those who are interested, like a more technical deep dive, right? So if anyone is interested to register for that, then they can just send Simon an email, and we will make sure that you get access to the deep dive as well.
And in regards to pricing, just let us know, and obviously we will share pricing information as well. So reach out to your sales rep at GridArt or to me directly, and I will help you with that. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Lewis, for today's session. And
Pleasure.
I will take it in Swedish. Tack allihopa som har varit med idag. Och imorgon är det ett nytt webbinar för de som har möjlighet att delta. Lite mer teknisk djupdykning. Annars så ses vi vid nästa tillfälle, hoppas jag. Och vi kommer höra av oss och stämma av ert intresse gällande de här spännande tjänsterna. Så tack och bock än en gång för er tid, och vi hörs vidare. Ha det gott allihop.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Lewis.
Thank you, Lewis.
Pleasure.
Thanks again. Bye bye.
Bye bye.